What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for February 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. As always, let's start off with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, who was your favorite post-Charles Barkley, pre-Allen Iverson Sixers, so that 92 to 96 range? For the majority of you who followed instructions, 45% said it was, in fact, Johnny Dawkins. 36% agreed with me that it was Clarence Weatherspoon. We had a few votes for Dana Barros, who probably was the best player they had during that time frame. At that point, Johnny Dawkins was sort of near the end of his career, and Dana Barros did make an all-star game. And I mentioned his rap single. Be sure to check that out if you haven't yet. Basketball's best kept secrets. We did have a write-in vote for Sean Bradley, but it was Johnny Dawkins with 45% of the vote. As always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531 get you in on the voice and text line. Just an update from yesterday. We talked about the Black History Spotlight was Leroy Burrell. And I should have looked it up and I mentioned, but in fact, the current 100-meter dash world record is 9.58, set by Usain Bolt in 2009. And one thing I did leave out and completely overlook this was that Leroy Burrell, after set the world record, had his personal best the day that Carl Lewis set the world record. Leroy Burrell did set it a couple years later, again in 1994, with a 9.85. But just kind of goes to show where the world record has gone. So I did miss out on that for Leroy Burrell. I mean, the accolades that he had were phenomenal, but I should have put in there he was a two-time 100-meter dash world record holder. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott, so you can stay in the loop. I did post a brand new Back to the Future last night. I sat down with Brian Michael, the producer of the A League Apart exhibit at Camden County College. It is basically takes a look at the legacy and the barrier breakers of Philadelphia Negro Leagues. So we talked a little bit about the exhibit, the history of the Negro Leagues in Philadelphia. They have an event coming up next week. Everything you need is in the description if you want to sign up for the event or to just go make a visit to the site. Learned a lot. It's a big... The Negro Leagues in Philadelphia were a lot bigger than I think any of us had ever really thought about or really looked into. Everybody knows the Philadelphia Stars, but there's a more rich history than that. So check that out. Back to the Future, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Back to the Future with a PH. But if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you're in the loop whenever things get posted. But there is the video as well as the audio version. I did try to venture in. Remember, because I need to get to 100 subscribers to help open up some doors. I don't have a Baba Booey to help me with the photos and things like that. So I did attempt to put some of the photos from the exhibit in there, but that's exclusively on the YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. Back to the Future with a PH, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We take a look at the legacy of the Negro Leagues in Philadelphia with Brian Michael, the producer of the A League Apart exhibit at Camden County College. Time is running out to get your Girl Scout cookies from Ella. We've done a good job. We got her up over the 200 box mark. Let's go and see if we can get to 250. Just follow the link in the description, and it takes you to her specific page, and you can hook her up. Finally, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame ballot for 2024 has been released. If you go to phillyhall.org/fansvoice, you can fill out your ballot. And even though it's not part of the official voting, they're very excited to give fans a chance to get their voice heard. And if you fill out a ballot and it is the closest to the official induction class, you can win 2 VIP tickets to the ceremony in November. Deadline for that is March 8th. Check that out in the description. You can get the link there, but that's phillyhall.org/fansvoice. All right, lots to get into today, and it's going to be hard to not go on and on with some of these things, but I will try my best. Let's start with the Flyers, who won 3-1 in Chicago yet last night against the Blackhawks. They're now 5-1-1 in February. Harrison has been phenomenal in goal, which is good. Kind of unexpected, and really, since Carter Hart is likely never going to play again. Hopefully, he will not play again. It's good to see that this is the goaltender we have, and good young guy that really fits in well with this young team. So they've come out of the All-Star break hot, 5-1-1 now in February. Let's hope that they can keep that momentum rolling through the next couple weeks. And again, that All-Star or the trade deadline is coming up very soon for the Flyers. So it's going to be very intriguing to see, because they are right there in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoff race. You don't envy Danny Briere and Keith Jones, because you got to try to find the right balance of going for it now versus not. Your young team that was supposed to be rebuilding. So it's a fine line that they're dealing with, but that's why they get paid the big bucks. All right, Sixers return to action tonight after the All-Star break against the Knicks. Kyle Lowry should be making his debut. Tobias Harris will be back. Batum is he's questionable, and DeAnthony Melton is not going to play, but they all practiced in full yesterday, so they are slowly getting healthy. There is a somewhat of an update on Joe. He was at practice on Tuesday. There's still no timetable, but he came into the facility early to sort of see how things were, see where he was at. He was enthusiastic. It's still wait and see, but it seemed like everybody was very optimistic that he will be able to come back for the playoff run. He does. I mean, he gets hurt a lot, but over the course of his career, he's been able to recover fairly quickly and has always sort of played through some injuries. So I feel like all signs pointed when this happened that it would be more of a pain management thing once he can't do anything structurally to the knee. Right now it's just getting the swelling to go down and dealing with the pain as the incision heals. And then, of course, getting back into playing shape. And like I said, he's proven there's been times where he's been doubtful for playoff games, and all of a sudden he's come out and scored 30, 40 points. So I'm optimistic about it. And again, it could be a lot of wishful, hopeful thinking for me. But I just feel the timing of it, and you're going to have him well rested, get into playing shape early in the first round series, and go from there. But it's still wait and see. Again, we're about a month in. We've got about another month. They said it was about a 2-month injury, which would take us near the end of March, which gives him a couple weeks to get geared up for the playoffs. But that leads to today's question of the day. Now that the Sixers are back after the All-Star break, what are realistic expectations for this team with a lot of the question marks and uncertainty surrounding them? I think it's almost nearly impossible. Well, I guess anything's possible, but I think for them to miss the playoffs is not a very likely scenario. But what are your expectations and realistic expectations? Are they in the play-in tournament? Are they one round and done? Do they win a round and get bounced in the second round? Or can they make a deep run and maybe get to the Eastern Conference semis or Eastern Conference finals? Let me know. 267-495-8531. Get you in. Let me know your thoughts. What are the realistic expectations for the Sixers? And I mean, a lot obviously is going to be dependent upon Joe, but let me know. Are they play-in? One and done? Do they win a round, or can they make a deeper run this year? 267-495-8531. All right, Phillies news, and there's not really a lot going on. They're in the depths of spring training. They open up their spring training slate on Saturday. But the big story is the jerseys, and I'm not really sure what to make of this. Because, I mean, if anybody's ever played organized sports, and whether it's for a little league team, high school, club teams, CYO, intramurals, whatever, beer league, softball, whatever it is, you know that sometimes it's hit or miss with the shirts and the jerseys you have to wear. But the fact that everyone in Major League Baseball is saying there's something with the jerseys, I feel like it's a pretty important story. It's a cheap fabric. They said it's supposed to be more of a performance enhancing than the old school sort of, I don't even know, the cotton material, I guess. They said I looked at it and you can't really tell, like certain things, like with the names being smaller and things like that. But apparently the patches and things like that are not embroidered, so it looks cheaply made. And every player, nobody's happy with them. So I don't know what's going to happen on this. I know for my money, I am ready for the games to start, because here we are spending 2 or 3 minutes talking about jerseys. I feel like Allen Iverson. So we're talking about jerseys, man. Not the game. We're talking about jerseys. But they said also the pants aren't, like, I don't know. And I mean, I think if the players are not happy, like, part of me is like, it doesn't matter, just suck it up and go. But you want the players to be comfortable when they're playing in order to perform their best. So I really want to see what Rob Manfred and Nike does about this. And this is already strike 2 for the Phillies with uniforms, because the leak of the possible City Edition jersey was not not well received. So anxious. Something's probably going to be done. And again, it seems like a silly story. However, if every team has complaints about it, as I was doing Google searches, like, yeah, we heard the Philly side, but like every city had something. It was a national story on CNN. So something probably is going to be done. What that is, I don't know. But again, the games cannot start soon enough for me, because here we are talking about jerseys, man. We're talking about jerseys. And now let's go to the Eagles, which is not going to get any better. Lots of drama surrounding this team so far this offseason. I guess first and foremost, Adam Schefter did go on. He was on the John Kincaid show yesterday on 97.5, and basically didn't really dispute I guess a lot of people were picking apart what he said, I guess I should say. He said he texted somebody within the Eagles organization, and like, I'm assuming it was a player, and they said that the story is BS, but didn't really go on to say that there is no story. And and the next part of this is where I'm going to go on my media rant. And this is, again, Philly media saying, oh, well, he didn't. It's all about the wording, this, that, and the other. And, I mean, Schefter is smart. He knows what he's doing. So, I don't know. This is something, though, that's different than the Chris Sims. Chris Sims, you're allowed to have dumbass opinions. Like, my issue with Chris Sims is not what he I guess it is what he says, but it's not that he's making up stories or anything like that. He's just hot takes looking for clickbait, which is fine. That's his opinion. He said he feels that Jalen Hurts is the most overrated player in the NFL. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. Personally, I think you're one of the top 5 overrated media personalities. You were a better quarterback than you were a media person, and that's saying something. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Chris Sims' stats and clips, and you'll know. But the Craig Carton thing, I think it's just irresponsible. And I do have a journalism background. Like, my undergrad degree is in journalism. So I know that that's irresponsible. And yes, you don't give up your sources, this, that, and the other. But, like, the way he presented it was kind of like, I got a secret, but I'm not telling. Like, it's just stupid. And I think it's very unprofessional. It's not... I don't know. It just makes you look like a douche. And I mean, he has a history of this. So, I mean, and I always go back to this quote. It's one of my favorite ones. But if you keep doing douchebag things, sooner or later, people are going to think that you're a douchebag. And this is kind of his MO. So it is what it is. And then A.J. Brown and I heard this morning on my way to the gym, apparently tweeted late last night that Philly media is BS, this, that. And obviously it was on WIP, so the Philly media took offense to it. But I think he's on to something. I mean, and again, because they went with his quote, well, he didn't necessarily dispute that there was. And it's like, come on, dude. Like, obviously, first of all, Craig Carton is not Philly media. But, I mean, Philly media has a history of doing dumb shit like this, though. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, I don't know. And, of course, like I said, the Philly media kind of got all their panties in a bunch, and I'm anxious to see what the radio shows and everything have today. But I really do think that there's something to it. Mike Schmidt back in the 80s said it. Dick Allen back in the 60s had issues with the Philadelphia media. And again, like as Jim Schwartz says, if you keep having issues and doing dumbass things, people are going to think you're a dumbass. Well, this is the MO of Philadelphia media. And I know I'm burning every probably bridge there is. And there might be something to this story. But I don't think, and I think everybody gets so butthurt and really like all up in their feelings when people question the media. But the media, I mean, there's plenty of examples. I mean, Marcus Hayes is one. A lot of the guys on the radio stations and it's just ridiculous. Like, yeah, like maybe there is something to it, but like, you're just speculating because Craig Carton's a douche and not really telling you what's going on. And then there was the story, and I like Derek Gunn, and he tweeted out that some of the things that he was hearing, and I think a lot of this makes sense. I guess the first thing to me, which I don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal, was after Jalen got the contract and really became like a celebrity overnight. He signed the contract with Jordan's brand. He said he couldn't handle it, and like it was a lot being pulled, and you could see he wasn't focused. He wasn't the same player. I'd look for him to correct that. I mean, the kid's still 20 some years old. All of a sudden came into a shitload of money. It makes sense. The other one that is more concerning is that Big Dom kind of keeps Nick Sirianni under wraps. And I'm not really sure what to make of that because technically that's kind of Big Dom's job. And it just seems odd that Big Dom got things were not going well for the Eagles. Yes, they had beaten Buffalo. They didn't necessarily defensively. They didn't play well in that Buffalo game. They got. I don't want to say they got lucky because offensively they played well. And that second quarter on of the San Francisco game was the game that Big Dom got kicked out of, and then he was suspended for the rest of the year. Things started spiraling out of control. So there was already some uneasiness because they've been answering questions despite being 10-1 all year about not playing well. And I think it's easy to say it's because Big Dom and like Sirianni was yelling, and he's admitted that he needs to work on his emotions and his work in progress or whatever. I don't know if Big Dom would have made a difference down the stretch for keeping him under check because they all talked about it. Britt Covey talked about it at the Super Bowl. There was a lot of they felt it. Jason Kelsey talked about it. Everybody talked about it. Like there was AJ Brown talked about it. Like there was just they were trying so hard. So as you're trying to press to fix something, emotions run high. And we all know Sirianni's an emotional guy anyway. But of course, everybody's ripping, oh, what does he do well? And I mean, Kelsey said the things he does well. He gets them ready to play. He's a detail kind of oriented guy, game management, things like that. And I don't know why there's this negative stigma on him being the CEO of the team when really that's, I don't know. Lots of coaches do that, and lots of coaches has been successful. So a lot going on in Eagles land, a lot going on with the media. And as somebody who has a journalism background, I think there's a lot of irresponsible and just reactiveness to what's going on. Like, Okay, A.J. Brown said it. Maybe he shouldn't have tweeted it. Maybe he should have stayed quiet, but take a deep breath and understand that there is a lot of frustration around this team. A lot of it is due to their play, and then the media sort of adding on to that and making up stories and being, I got a secret. So I think everybody just needs to take a deep breath. It's the off season. As much as I hate to say this, because as much as I love the Eagles, I think we just need to forget about the Eagles until free agency starts and just kind of, and I know it's hard in Philadelphia, but I mean, at this point, the thing's going to blow up because nobody can leave it alone. The Phillies, we got the Sixers, Flyers, Union starting. So let's maybe put the Eagles on a back burner until free agency starts. And I don't know. It's just, it's a mess. I'll put it to you this way. It's a mess. Speaking of Angry Birds fans, Philly Goat dropped a new shirt yesterday. It's called the Angry Birds Fan. It is designed by a local South Philly artist, Olivia Smith. If you go to Philly Goat, that you can see it there. But she does a lot of good stuff. I checked out her Instagram. But the Angry Birds Fan is basically how we were all, if you look at it, that's how we all felt this season. So go check out phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery. Get the new Angry Birds Fan shirt. While you're shopping for your St. Patty's Day stuff, time is running out for that. Order soon so you can get it. But get the new Angry Birds Fan shirt from phillygoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. All right. Today we're going to go back to 1975. And on February 22nd, 1975, the Immaculata women's team, yes, the Mighty Macs, beat Queens College 65-61 at Madison Square Garden. Wasn't a tournament game, just was a regular season game. But this was important because it was the first ever women's basketball game to be played at Madison Square Garden. There's another kind of local connection there because Lucille Cavalas, who was the coach of Queens College, coached at Westchester back when it was, I think, Westchester State Teacher College. And Kathy Rush was a member on the team. So you had almost like the student going against the teacher, Cavalas versus Kathy Rush. Queens led at halftime, but Immaculata, who many considered to be the female version of UCLA back in that day. And if you don't know, look up UCLA and just the dynasty they had under John Wooden. We'll get more into the Mighty Macs in March for Women's History Month, but they were the top women's team at the time. But this game, again, was the first women's game ever to be played at Madison Square Garden. And it was part of a doubleheader. So check this out. This is how big Immaculata and Queens, like they were two of the better, or not two of the better, the two best, for the most part, women's teams at the time. 12,000 fans showed up. The women's game was first. They watched the Mighty Macs beat Queens College, and many of them, if not most of them, left either during or before the second game even started. That was a men's game, Fairfield versus UMass, and this game was very, very critical in the growth of women's basketball. It was sort of like a watershed moment, like, hey, we're here on, because at the time, Madison Square Garden, and if you're a wrestling fan, you know Madison Square Garden is like the mecca for professional wrestling. Concerts, everybody wants to play Madison Square Garden. Boxing, the fight of the century, Ali Frazier was at Madison Square Garden. So like it was like the mecca of the sports world. So for women to play college basketball in front of 12,000 fans at Madison Square Garden, this was huge and really helped propel and grow the game. And again, I'll have more on the Mighty Macs in March for Women's History Month. But on this day, back in 1975, Immaculata beat Queens College 65-61 in the first ever game to be played at Madison Square Garden. Just a great moment for women's college sports, but just women in general, to be the focal point and to have 12,000 fans there and most of them leave after your game was just a huge, huge thing. All right, and finally today, our Philly Sports Black History Spotlight. Today is Zach Clayton. He was a Simon Gratz graduate. He lettered in football, basketball, baseball, and track. He played games at the Christian Street Y in South Philly with Tarzan Cooper, who we talked about the other day. He played professionally for some of the black teams in Philly. After that, he went to Chicago and played and got more nationally known because the Chicago team was more known nationally. And then he ultimately signed with the New York Rens to play again with Tarzan Cooper. They had one hell of a team. They won the World Professional Basketball League tournament in 1939, becoming the first non-white team to do that. And I think, believe it or not, I think the 1939 tournament was the first one. But then he kind of played for the Rens for a little bit and ended up winning that championship again with the Washington Bears in 1943, again with Tarzan Cooper. He is a Naismith Hall of Famer, and for the most part, Zach Clayton is considered one of the all-time greats in the pre-NBA era. He was a great defender. He could score, and just of any race, he was just considered one of the all-time greats of that era before, like the early years of basketball. And that would have been enough to just put him on our spotlight. However, he also played professional baseball in the Negro Leagues. He played from 1932 to 1937 and then 43 through 45 for various teams as well. And we talked about this with the interview I did with Brian about how the leagues were sort of just all over the place. So be sure to check that out. And that's why he played for many different teams. But he was a professional baseball and a professional basketball player, probably one of the first two-sport athletes of our time. And again, that would be enough to put him on our Black History Spotlight. But then when he retired, he became a professional boxing referee as well as a professional firefighter in Philly. So as a firefighter, he worked his way up to lieutenant and retired from the fire department, all while he was reffing boxing matches. And he became the first African-American to referee a heavyweight boxing match. This one had another Philly tie in it. There's lots of Philly ties in this today. The fight was between Jersey Joe Walcott and Ezzard Charles in 1952. But he's probably best known for being the referee in the Muhammad Ali-George Foreman fight when Ali knocked out Frazier in Kinshasa, Zaire. There you go, Dad. If you're listening, I gave you an Ali shout out. But Zach Clayton was the referee in that fight. The same guy that played professional basketball, the same guy that played in the Negro League for baseball. He was a firefighter, like just amazing. His other claim to fame was he also reffed Ali's last fight, the unanimous decision loss to Trevor Berbick. For rightfully so, he's in the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, as well as being a Naismith Hall of Famer for basketball. And then on top of it all, he worked with Philly youth and was a part of Mayor Frank Rizzo's task force to help stop the gang violence that was plaguing the city in the 60s and 70s. So he did so much for the city of Philadelphia and probably somebody we never even heard of. So Zach Clayton is today's Philly Sports Black History Spotlight, professional basketball player, two-time champion in the World Professional Basketball League tournament, a Negro League professional player, professional firefighter, and then a boxing referee to boot, and reffed when Ali won the title against Joe Frazier in Kinshasa, Zaire. So one hell of a dude. So we shout out you today, Zach Clayton, as today's Philly Sports Black History Spotlight. On this day back in 1975, Immaculata's women's team, the Mighty Macs, beat Queens College 65-61 in the first ever women's game at Madison Square Garden. Be sure to give me your thoughts on the Eagles situation, the dumpster fire right now that appears to be our football team. Do we care about the baseball jerseys? The question of the day, what are the realistic expectations for the Sixers for the second half of the season? 267-495-8531 get you in. Be sure to check out Back to the Future, my interview with Brian. anywhere you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. It's Back to the Future with a PH. Easiest way to stay in touch is to like and subscribe. Told you we had a big show today and lots going on, but it is Thursday. Go and have yourselves a Thursday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. My name is Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I will see you when I see you.